Hello and welcome to the Power Source Approach. My name is Jim Herrick. I'm the owner of Power Source Training Center, and I want to spend the next few minutes taking you through a little bit of information about what we do, where we came from. If you're a parent of a current athlete or even a former athlete and you're curious to know a little bit more about our program, maybe we didn't do a great job of explaining it right off the bat, or maybe some things have changed and we haven't been able to keep in touch and keep you up to date on all that. There's a lot of information here that hopefully you'll find helpful. And then if you've never been with us before and you're curious maybe how Power Source is different from our team, your son or daughter's team program or your school's program, or just how is it different from another gym or my kid just working out on their own, hopefully about 5 to 10 minutes from now when this wraps up, you'll have a much better idea of what that's all about. So there's three things that we'll cover here. First is the evolution of our program. We've been around for a while. Things have evolved as the years have gone by, hopefully for the better. I'll give you a little bit more information on our training philosophy. Every fitness program has their own beliefs. We obviously have ours, and I want to make sure that I get across why we believe what we believe. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about the process that we have for our athletes and how we get results for our athletes based on everything that we have set up for them. So our program began as Power Source in 2002. It was originally a St. Bernard's High School football program that moved to Cushing Academy. And then in the summer of 2002, we started working with athletes one-on-one. So it was just two athletes in that first summer, both Division I college prospects in their sport, girls lacrosse and boys ice hockey. And we actually did our training back here in this hockey rink, the Iorio Arena up at Cushing Academy. There's a little weight room in the back corner there that you probably can't see all that well. And then there's a door that took you outside into what used to be a field. It's now tennis courts. And that's where Power Source originally began. The idea was to custom design training and do one-on-one training for athletes that aspire to play at an elite level. So what we had at the time was a 2-hour workout that was an hour of speed and conditioning, an hour of strength training. That grew over the years, and it turned into our first facility, which you see in the middle here. This is our original Power Source location in Leominster. And what we did there was we had to switch to 1-hour programming. So in the first 8 years when we were doing this as a summer camp at Cushing Academy, we always had our 2-hour classes in there. But the challenge, and is even more so a challenge now, is kids are very busy, not just in the summertime, but year round. They play sports, they have lots of practices, lots of commitments. So the original challenge was, how do we take that 2-hour format and start to condense it into an hour format, but still provide all the same value in there. So we operated out of our first location in Leominster for about 9 years. And then we moved to our new location, which is still here in Leominster, right at the line of Sterling. And that is the picture that you see on the right in 2019. But what's happened over those 17, 18 years that we've worked is we're always trying to find ways to get the original value. Our original intent was to provide personalized programming that blends speed, strength, and conditioning and helps athletes to play at the highest level that they possibly can. So through the years, we've had certain influences, some very big on our program. So a lot of times somebody will ask me something like, is this a CrossFit program? And their model and our model are not exactly the same. And for one way that we're definitely different is that the influences that we have are not the same. So from my perspective as a coach, and then from us as an organization, some organizations have made a big impact on us. The National Strength and Conditioning Association, which is like the cornerstone of the strength and conditioning world, that's where college strength programs really grew. And our philosophy began with a lot of NSCA principles in there. We've grown to use something called functional movement systems, which is a great evaluation tool. You can almost think of them as like a blend of physical therapy and strength training. We use a lot of their systems. I'll get into that later. And they've been a very big impact, or they've had a very big impact on our training approach. And then the IYCA, which is, you can think of them as like the NSCA, but more geared towards younger athletes. So it's a different approach that you would take with a 10-year-old versus a 20-year-old college football player, There are reasons for that. The IYCA does a great job of educating people like myself and others in the field as to what those differences are and how to best serve everybody in those populations. So between those three organizations, it's been very beneficial for our athletes to have all of that knowledge come through our coaching staff over the years. And then some people that directly relate to what we do down on the bottom here. This is Lee Taft on the left. Lee is probably the best speed and agility coach, or one of the best speed and agility coaches in the world. His ideas are very simple. They're very practical. We use a lot of his training here. Nick Winkleman, the coach in the middle, another excellent speed coach, but also somebody who is really good at teaching coaches how to explain what we do in a way that gets across really well to athletes, helps them to remember it and retain what they're doing. And then Martin Rooney on the right, another tremendous coach, a guy who really has helped myself for sure, and then hopefully all of our coaches to understand that it's the client and it's the athlete that comes first all the time. It's not about you, it's about them. And he has some wonderful training philosophies that have filtered into what we have here. So one of the things as we've evolved over the years, and as I've evolved as a coach, is to understand that training is well beyond just getting somebody better for their sport. That we have the opportunity in a fitness program to help athletes and help kids to understand that there are certain habits that once they build them, they're not only going to be more successful in their sport and more successful in their training, but they're going to be more successful in a lot of other ways if they truly bring those and ingrain those into their lifestyle. So when we talk about the Power Source approach, part of it is a training approach, but part of it is that we are very heavily weighted towards trying to get kids to understand successful habits and trying to instill those through training. And here what you see is essentially, it's not, again, mine. It's Mike Robertson and Coach Alvar Meal, two very good strength and conditioning coaches. Just the concept of where different skills fit in a training program in athletic development overall. So as you said on the previous slide, habits are really the foundation of success in anything. So the bottom layer here of this pyramid are habits. We'll get into the specifics of those habits in a little bit. If I'm not training correctly, if I don't take the right approach, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing in other areas because it's not going to lead to anything positive. So habits are always the foundation of anything that we would do here at Power Source. But then you're looking at some skills that build on each other. So mobility and stability, we'll get into all these in a bit. Mobility and stability affect everything. If I don't have range of motion, if I'm not stable at certain joints, it's going to impact all the skills above this here. Coordination and motor control, same thing. So once I have the mobility and stability I need to be successful as an athlete, can I put it together in a coordinated fashion? Strength and conditioning, the big things, those layer on top of there, and they are the foundation that builds onto the top tier of that pyramid, which is being more powerful, more elastic, and then finally, the thing that all coaches and most kids and parents are looking for in training is to develop more speed and agility. So there's a hierarchy here that in a visual sense, you can kind of see that it's not just about one thing. There's not one skill that's more important than the other. They're all integrated and they build off of each other from the bottom of that pyramid right to the top. So back to the bottom of the pyramid. When we talk about habits, what is it that we're talking about here? Well, there are 5 big ones that I see that I think that if all of our kids had this, and if I had this, and you had this, we'd all be more successful in what we do. So one is a thought process of, am I looking to go through the motions or am I looking to master what I'm doing? So we talk a lot about attention to detail, but it really is key. If somebody's going through an exercise, a training session, whatever, a class in school, and they're really looking to master what they do, they're looking to make sure they're doing everything right, it builds a much better foundation of skill, and it makes it much easier to do bigger things as they move into the future. Are they goal-oriented? Is somebody coming in looking to get better? Or again, are they just looking to get through the session? When problems come up, am I able to overcome adversity? Am I able to overcome challenges? Or do those challenges knock me back? Do they knock me off stride a little bit? Somebody who can take a challenge, especially in a training session where something might not be easy at first, and they're willing to work through it even though it's difficult at first, they tend to see a lot more success down. Effort, we all know effort is key. to success in anything, and how committed are you to improve? So when somebody comes in the first day and they tell me they want to be stronger, faster, more fit, all of these things, and they tell me they're going to be here all the time, but then we only see them once or twice a month, how much success are you going to have? So an athlete that has these habits in place, much more likely to be successful. And once they have that, all of these skills start to really matter. So a functional movement screen is a testing system that is really focused on these 4 areas, the bottom of the pyramid, the things that most people probably either overlook or don't care too much about. But like a lot of other things, healthy diet and whatnot, they're the underlying skills that help somebody to get the bigger things that they really want. So everybody wants to be bigger and stronger and leaner and faster. But without these 4 qualities, it's hard to do that in a way that's sustainable, that isn't going to lead to injury or poor performance in other ways. So without going too far, you can research the functional movement system if you'd like. We use their system and are very big believers in their system. And these are the skills that build the athletic foundation. From there, strength and conditioning, just like the field is named, this is where most people are spending their time. So if I'm looking at a typical high school program, I'm doing a lot of conditioning through captain's practices, team practices, workouts on our own, or I'm in the weight room and I'm working on pure strength, putting up big numbers in there. These are 2 very critical skills, of course, but the foundation below it is very important, and the peak performance skills at the top are also very important. But within this realm here, strength training philosophy at PowerSource, we are looking for 3-dimensional training. Athletes move in multi-directional space almost all of the time, and athletes need to be strong in all 3 planes of motion. So I'm not just doing linear forward-back exercises that you might see in like an old Nautilus program or a machine-based program. We are looking for multi-directional training here. We want a balanced approach, so we're not just pressing, we're balancing out all the pressing we do, bench press, push-ups, all those types of things. We're balancing it out with an equal or in sometimes greater number of pulling drills, rows, pull-ups, those types of things. And same with leg strength. We're doing exercises that work at muscles around the knee and the hip equally, not just the muscles around the knee. Symmetry, we want to make sure that our athletes are symmetrical from the right side to the left side. They're not just barbell training all of the time, because there are tons. If you see athletes in a weight room, you'll see that there are tons of asymmetries in there. That is a leading predictor of future injury. We want to work that out because it not only lowers their injury risk, but it also is going to increase their performance in the weight room and on the field. Conditioning. We are not a jogging program. I don't know how to sugarcoat this. I don't know how else to say it. We have articles on our website that explain why, if you're curious. But I'm a fairly strong believer, based on research that I've seen, based on how our athletes run, if they're distance runners all the time, and the mechanics issues that they have that are preventing them from being fast. We are not believers in jogging. Our conditioning philosophy is more interval based. We want to make sure that our athletes are training in the demands of their sport. If I'm a distance runner, that's a different story. But if I'm an athlete playing a field sport and there's a lot of start and stop, I want my conditioning to mimic that. So we're looking for much higher intensity conditioning sprinkled in with rest periods. And then the peak power skills. So you're looking at the very top of the pyramid: power, elasticity, speed, and agility. Power is moving with a lot of force in a short period of time. So there are Olympic lifting exercises, plyometric body weight exercises, all types of things in there that we use and are big fans of. But it's not going to work very well if I don't have a strength foundation first. So this comes above in that pyramid because you need that real strong base to get the most out of your power training. Once it's there, somebody who becomes more powerful through training or whatever their natural base was to begin with, they're going to be able to throw, kick, shoot with much more velocity. They're going to be able to hit. Think of a baseball player hitting the ball much further than they used to. All of those skills are going to come from this power category. They are 100% trainable, but it always works best when you have a great strength base. And elasticity, not a skill. Like, I don't think anybody's ever said to me, I want my son or daughter to come there to build their elasticity. It's not a skill that is very popular, but I think if you watch it and you see it in an athlete, you know that that athlete is really good. So elasticity, if you think of somebody that can jump rope really well, they've just got some bounce to their step. They're not stuck on the ground. They're not squishy in their movements when they're taking steps, changing direction, sprinting in there. There's some simple ways to test that, but if you picture an Olympic sprinter or you picture anybody that's really fast out in an open field, they have great elasticity. They are not on the ground for very long. They have this like rubber band effect to their lower body where they can just bounce off the ground. They're not spending extra hundreds of seconds on the ground in each stride. And that adds up to being a much faster athlete. So it's a product of all the things below it, just like we talked about with everything else in the pyramid. Elasticity is in and of itself a very key skill. And how you build speed and agility, it's everything below that. So all the things that we just talked about are critical in there. And then actual technique, sprinting, cutting technique, reactive training, and then competitive drills. So in our speed and agility format, which we'll get into in a second, speed and agility, reactive training, and competing against each other is like the apex of that pyramid where you're looking to get the very best out of someone once they're technically sound. You want to make sure that they are capable of reading and reacting in situations at actual game speed. Okay, so last part that we really want to talk about is our program and how we would help you with all of these things. So that was a lot. Obviously, there are a lot of different parts. Athletic development, in my opinion, is just a really hard thing to do. It gets simplified, it gets minimized so many times, and it's so complex. And there's so many things that an athlete can do to make themselves better. You just need to know where to go, right? So with all of those things that we just talked about, you can't do it all at once. You need to have a way to find the weakest link in the chain, and you want to hit that right away. You can build a couple different skills, but you really need to have a primary focus in your training. The way we do that is we start with an initial evaluation. So for somebody coming into our program, we want to take them through a functional movement screen and something called the functional capacity screen. So movement screen works mobility, stability, motor control, coordination, and now the capacity screen, which is done through the same organization, layers in strength, power, and elasticity into that initial evaluation. So we're looking at just about everything in our initial evaluation, and we're trying to find areas of need for our athletes. Within that initial evaluation and that initial meeting, we'd also want to talk to that person about what their goals are, what their current focus is, whether or not there's any injury concerns, those types of things. So in the process of working with PowerSource, this is step one, the initial evaluation. From there, the classes, how do we run our classes? They're 75 minutes. We do a quick game-based warm-up or other way to get your heart rate up at the beginning. Everybody has their own customized workout, which we put 45 minutes on the clock, and we have workouts designed ready to go. So you'd be coming in and you'd be going through your custom workout based on your testing and any goals that we discussed in the initial evaluation, or if you've been here for a while as part of an ongoing conversation. Workouts are rewritten after every fifth session. And then in the last 25 minutes, you have the option of doing a speed and agility session, which is run by one of our coaches, or you can do a high intensity conditioning session based on your sport needs. It can be done on your own, but ideally it's run by a coach, so you have some expertise in there too. And this is a piece that's a little bit new. So way back when we started and we had 2 athletes and we were doing 2-hour sessions, it was much easier to talk about all of the other things that impact training success: nutrition, mindset, your recovery techniques, sleep, foam rolling, all that stuff. We are in the process of getting back to that. So for athletes who've been here for a while that maybe these other things weren't a primary focus before, now coming back, we will be focusing on this more. One of the things is the 21-day Athlete Habit Builder Challenge, which is a much simpler way than anything we've had before to communicate back and forth what goes on outside of the training session. So if you've never been here before, you should know that we're looking to provide support outside of the training session. And then if you are already here or have been here before, you should know that this is something that we're going to be rolling out as we move forward. And then how does it go as you move forward? So I get into the classes, I start running sessions, I'm here, I'm excited about getting better. How is it that I take the path from 6th grade to college? Or how do I take the path from the beginning of the year in January to the end of the year in December? How am I navigating this athletic development path? Well, It's first on the athlete, of course, that you have to make sure that you get your sessions in and you're training hard and you're always looking to get better. But it's obviously also on our side to make sure that we're giving you the right programming. So everything that we discussed in our philosophy is hopefully on the right track and getting you where you would want to go. But how do we know that we're doing that? How do we know when maybe to take a turn to the right when we might have been drifting to the left? What do we do? So our reevaluation process, that functional movement screen, functional capacity screen, our athletes are all now allowed to do 2 reevaluations per year. They can do it forever as long as they want, where you can go back and see what's changed. So if you spend all this time working on hamstring flexibility, maybe it'd be nice to know 6 months down the road or less than that, whether or not I've gotten better from that. Same thing with strength testing. We are about to roll out a new strength testing feature where our athletes can just use their class time in order to determine whether their strength numbers are going up, a tracking system that hopefully is very simple to implement. And then we have been doing this for the last 6 months. We do a vertical jump test, 60-yard shuttle test to retest those skills at the top of the pyramid. And we do that every other month. And then obviously, we want to make sure that we're in communication at all times. It's easy to do that with the athletes because we see them, we're right there, we can have conversations. It can be a little harder with parents because we don't always see parents come in, but it is 100% part of helping each kid get to where they want to go. So if there was an injury, somebody rolled an ankle at practice or something like that, or now they started playing on a new team and they're in season and we need to adapt training, communication back and forth is a huge piece of the puzzle, and it helps us to help you. So it is very, very, very welcome. Okay, so we'll wrap this up here. This is a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be at first, but I want to make sure that we're covering all this stuff, which is very important. So the last piece is really how it all comes together. So you talk about habit-based training, you talk about how you train and how to make a kid what they want to become in the future. And it's hard for a lot of us. It's definitely hard for me and has been over the years, but I feel like it's hard for everyone to step out of our comfort zone, because right out of that comfort zone is the fear zone, right? So I have routines that I've gone through and they don't seem to be all that helpful, and I might know that, but then there's the fear of, well, what if I go outside my comfort zone and I try something and I fail? Or I can't do that because I've got this. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I've got this. I've got that. Well, it's hard to really be successful if you don't step out of that comfort zone and walk through the fear zone into getting into the areas where you really, truly do get better. So as coaches, it's our job to really encourage people to walk through that fear zone and get into their growth, get into those areas where they might be uncomfortable, but that's where you get better. And the big picture of what we do here at Power Source is we want to help kids succeed. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to give them the very best programming, the very best training philosophies. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're here working with them to grow and to get to where they want to be. So there you go. Thank you very much for taking the time to go through this and listen to what we have to say. If you have any questions, if there's anything here that maybe sparked an interest and you'd like to reach out, our phone number, my personal email is right there. And then you can always find more information on our website too. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day.